Morning. Hey. Is it starting to feel like the Christmas season, Thanksgiving? Isn't it though?
Thanksgiving or Christmas.
Thanksgiving, Christmas, yeah.
Thanksgiving's supposed to be 50 degrees.
How many people sat in the woods Thursday morning?
I drove by the woods.
Oh man, I'll tell you what. I sat there in the woods and I thought, I'm so cold, I need to get up. So I got up and I crawled, I hung in this great big water tank, so I climbed down the ladder and got on the ground, and I thought, I'll go sit under a tree on the ground and maybe I can be a little warmer down there. And I thought, oh my, if I sit down, I'm so cold, I'm stiff, I don't know if I can get back up. So
That's cold.
that's when I radioed to Susan and told her that, you know, I'm very, very cold. She says, I am too. So I drove down to her blind, I got in the truck and I drove down there, parked the truck and got out and crawled up in the blind with her. And I've got a heater that goes in the blind, and we didn't have it up there yet, did we? But I think what we did was we talked about it for a minute and decided to sit in the truck because it'd be faster to get warm that way. So we drove out and we had lunch and got warmed up, and then we went back and put the heater in the blind and sat there for the rest of the afternoon together. And that was nice. We didn't see nothing. That was nice. She did a lot of reading and I did a lot of sleeping. So that was nice. To me that's success. Isn't that success in the woods? Just to have a wonderful day with somebody that you really appreciate doing with it. You know? I love hunting with my wife. She's funny. She keeps me laughing out in the woods. That's as far as
They're not quiet, apparently.
Yeah, they're not quiet. She'd bustle around in the blind and then go creak, creak, and I just kind of grin at her, and she'd know that she was being loud, and she'd just settle back down to the book again. And so it was fun. It was fun. And sat out there Friday in her blind without her, and she told me I'd have a visitor, and sure enough, he came and he jumped around on the top of it's got a metal roof on it. And it sounded like two kids playing street hockey up there. So, but he's the biggest brown squirrel, fox squirrel I've ever seen.
I know, he's huge.
I've never seen one that actually wore a 6-gun before. He was very courageous looking. But we had a good time, and I hope everybody else did too. Let's ask the Lord to come join us this morning. Father, we thank you and praise you for your love. God, we thank you for your blessings, your grace. Thank you for the time in the woods, Lord. A little time just to be quiet in my inner self and be able to talk with you and give thanks, Father, and just appreciate what a wonderful, wonderful creation you have made. And so, God, as we've come together this morning, again, I say thank you, and I ask you, send the Spirit, come join us, Father, here in this building. Enlighten us. Bless us. May we glorify you in song and in deed, and in our actions, in our daily lives, Father. In Jesus' name, I thank you and praise you. Amen.
Take my
if I didn't have you. If I didn't have you. Come take my life, take my soul, take my sins away, make me whole.
have an issue with the ending there. When are we going to end?
In my song
How many of you are full? Full?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's what I'm asking. Are you full? Maybe by Thursday you'll be full. I don't know. By the evening?
Friday morning.
Friday morning you might still be full.
I'll be comatose.
Yeah, we might be comatose, but by then.
Turkey omelets on Friday
Yeah. When we're full, we feel more grateful, don't we? We get the tummy full, and then when everything else in life is full, and we are very thankful, aren't we? When we have family and friends, and maybe sometimes you don't want to see all your family, but that's all right. At least you still have a full house or a full. I don't know about you, but my wife was praying that I would not get a deer this year. Now, how do you, is that the ultimate treason or what? She told me this, and I said, well, why? She said, well, because our freezer's already full.
I think that's why we're not seeing any.
Yeah. We still
Ours
have,
is empty, we're not doing any better.
There are things that can be a blessing and a curse.
That's
Like,
right.
I had gone all year one season and hadn't seen or gotten anything, and I was so frustrated because I always at least saw it here. And Susan says, honey, don't worry about it. Maybe God will let you get one with the car. The very next day, going past
Down Deer Road.
on Deer Road, from out at West Golden into our town, and as I went past the sand drag, here comes the first one popping out of the ditch, and it made it across, and the second one was smaller, and it was black ice all through there. On the south side. I had the car tires locked up, and we were probably at about a 45-degree angle starting to spin, and we let off the brakes and got the car started, but it put us right into that deer. So
He told me not to ever say that
Yeah,
again.
don't ever say that again.
Was the meat good at least?
Huh?
Was the meat good, or did you have?
Yeah, but it was very small. There wasn't a whole lot there.
had one good side left.
When I had mine, the meat was not salted well.
Bob has passed up 2 deer at least this season because he was too embarrassed to post a picture of 2 teeny tiny
They
deer.
were pretty small.
He didn't want
you
his
gotta
son
take
to
what
see
that
a
gives you.
picture.
I
of
know.
teeny tiny deer.
I know I knew it would happen when you bow season,
around your neck
and
and
you-
carry it in.
you don't shoot during bow season because it's too small or whatever, and then when you get the gun season, you don't even see a deer, and then we see one. So, yep, that was me too. Well, I want to talk about being already full because we have so much to be thankful for. And this is Thanksgiving week, so I'm doing a Thanksgiving type of message this morning. But even before we start, being thankful for all the great things that we have, the food that we're going to enjoy this week, and family and friends, and good health. I hope we're feeling thankful for that, and just all the blessings, food and shelter and clothes and jobs and security and just some amazing things that we really do have to be thankful for. What if we didn't have any of that? Would we still be full? I want to say yes. What can we be full of? Randy was heading that direction when I started asking, what are we full of?
God's grace, God's
God's
spirit.
grace. Yes, God's Spirit.
That's it.
Forgiveness. If we had nothing else, we would still be full. Because He fills us with Himself. And to that, we can say thank you. We should say thank you. And we should be grateful. Okay. Before we get full on Thanksgiving, we should still be grateful. Because we are already full. Today we're going to look at a story about ingratitude. This is one of my favorite stories in the New Testament. I don't know, we don't look at it very much, but it's the story of the 10 lepers that Jesus healed. There were these 10 leopards, lepers. I hope I don't say leopards all day long. Lepers, and they were 10 of them, and Jesus healed all 10 of them. But only one came back to say thank you. And that's kind of the point of the story. We don't get a whole lot more out of this story other than only one seemed to be thankful. And the rest are saying, you know, I'm healed, but I'm still ugly. Or I wish you'd have given me a coat. I really needed that. Or I wish I had a ride back to town. Or now I've got the hiccups. I love this part. It's hilarious. Let's look at the story from Luke chapter 17. That's the only place this story appears in all the Gospels. Luke 17, verse 11 says, Now on his way to Jerusalem, Jesus traveled along the border between Samaria and Galilee. As he was going into a village, 10 men who had leprosy met him. They stood at a distance and called out in a loud voice, Jesus, Master, have pity on us. And when he saw them, he said, Go, show yourselves to the priests. And as they went, they were cleansed. One of them, when he saw that he was healed, came back, praising God in a loud voice. He threw himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him. And he was a Samaritan. We're going to make a big deal out of this. Jesus asked, Were not all 10 cleansed or healed? Where are the other 9? Has no one returned to give praise to God except this foreigner? I like the way Jesus put that. It's kind of, I don't know. Then he said to him, Rise up, go, your faith has made you well. I want us to put ourselves in the place of those lepers today. Not leopards, but lepers. And hopefully, again, we would be more like the one who came back than the other 9. But let's start out by just imagining ourselves as being like those lepers. And the fact that we need to be grateful, and we need to be ready to go back. But we need to start out by realizing who we were. We were like those lepers. And that we needed healing. We needed saving. In fact, we're going to talk a little bit about leprosy today, but I want us to even put kind of a spiritual interpretation to that and realize that we, in our sin, in our sinfulness, are kind of like lepers spiritually. And, you know, God might see us that way, or Jesus sees us that way. And so I'm going to spiritualize the story a little bit, but I also want us to take this as a reason to be thankful. That if we were one of those 10 lepers, which one would we be? Hopefully we would be the Samaritan, the foreigner who came back and said, Thank you. Because we know that Jesus did something great for us. And before we get all the other good things in life, before we're full on Thanksgiving, we are already full of His grace and forgiveness and healing and His Spirit and all the great spiritual things. And if we had nothing else, we would still have a good reason to be grateful. That's where I want us to go this week. And sure, this week, be grateful, be thankful for all the other things. Don't leave that out. But before you get full, remember that you're already full. So what did Jesus do for us? Why should we be so thankful for this great salvation? Well, the first thing that I see in this story, I'm going to make myself one of these lepers. I'm going to say, the first thing for which I am thankful is that He saw me. Isn't that interesting? In this story, these were 10 lepers, And Jesus and his disciples were walking along. They were traveling. They were trying to get to Jerusalem. They had still had a long way to go. If you know the geography, if they're on the border between Galilee and Samaria, they have not even gotten south far enough to be in Judah, which is where the city of Jerusalem is. So they've got to get through, they've got through Galilee, they've got to get all the way through Samaria, and then south into Judah. So they've got a long ways to go. And they're stopping in this village. Why are they stopping there? It doesn't say. Maybe they needed a McDonald's, or maybe they were hungry, looking for something. Maybe they needed a bathroom break, or maybe it was towards evening. It doesn't say. Maybe they were looking for a place to stay. But the point is, they were on the road. They were traveling. I don't know about you, but when I'm on the road and when I'm traveling and I've got a place to go, I don't like to stop for anything, right? I don't like to get distracted. I don't like anybody to... Or are we looking at Randy? Is Randy doing that?
Somebody said amen.
Oh, yeah, Susie did. She probably said, yeah, amen. And so here they are. They've got a place to go. They're trying to get somewhere, and somebody starts shouting at them. And this again, try to put yourself in their place. And there's these 10 guys off to the side of the road. They couldn't come close because they're lepers, right? They couldn't be inside the village because they're lepers. So they're standing outside the village, a little ways off the road because they couldn't be close, and they start shouting. What would you do? I'll put myself in the place of Jesus and his disciples and say, boy, it would have been easy, and the most common thing to do would have been to keep on going. Because there's a reason they were standing off by the side of the road. There's a reason you didn't want to stop and talk to these guys, because it was obvious that they were lepers. And even if they weren't lepers, I mean, it's really not a good idea when you're traveling and you're going down the road and there's a gang of 10 guys yelling at you. You don't stop the car, do you? You roll the window up. You hit the locks if the locks aren't on yet, because it could be dangerous even.
But
to
he already
stop.
knew they were there, I mean, I'm sure, right? It's not like it was a surprise to him.
And Jesus in his omniscience and knowing everything, sure, he knew. But they didn't know that he knew.
Well, they called him by name according to the
They
scripture.
called him,
That struck me too, that they knew who he was.
Yeah, and I think this is important too. We're going to get to this at the last point today, but he did. They probably expected him to come by, and they were positioned for that. But they still could not come close because of who they were. And so the first thing that just strikes my attention is that Jesus stopped, and in verse 12, it's verse 12 or is it 13? I can't remember. It says that he saw them. It would have been easy, it would have been common to pretend that you didn't even see him and keep on going. But apparently Jesus stopped and he saw them. And as soon as he looked at them, you can just imagine their excitement. He stopped, he looked, he saw us. Because if you're a leper, you know, what do you think of when you hear the word leprosy?
Stuff all over the
You think of somebody that's not in good shape. And
there were two kinds of leprosy. There was a contagious type, and then there was a type of leprosy that had all the same effects, but it wasn't something that was contagious from it. And the thoughts that are going through my mind is, think in terms of going numb. Because you lose feeling in your body. And part of the problem with lepers was they would burn themselves with hot pans and stuff, to the point where their limbs, their hands and that, they'd actually burn them off because they didn't feel it. Sin does that to us, and we're all lepers.
Yeah.
And as I was sitting here listening, and you said, well, what did Christ do? He restored their feeling.
That's a good point. healed them and restored that part of them especially. That's good.
It's a whole nother sermon, I'll let you know.
Okay, we can do that one too sometime. That is good. And I don't know, of course, I'm a big fan of Monk. I don't know if you've ever watched the TV show Monk.
Yeah.
There's this episode called The Leper. And he goes and he talks to this guy and doesn't know that he's a leper. And then when, at the end of the conversation, the guy says, and leans into the light and you can see his face is all messed up. And he said, by the way, I'm a leper. And Monk just goes running and screaming and running and hiding. And he gets back to his apartment and he's scrubbing his hands because he'd shaken hands with this leper. So he's scrubbing his hand and uses up all the soap in the house and uses up all the hot water. And he's got stuff boiling on the stove. And he's about to put his hand into a boiling pot of water, and his assistant said, don't do that. He said, well, what am I supposed to do? And he pulls out this can of kerosene, and he started dumping kerosene on his hand. He says, okay, light me. Because he is so scared of the word leper, leprosy. And it's still to this day, it kind of makes us shudder a little bit, doesn't it? These are kind of the creeps, the willies. And if you watch that episode, you learn, I hope what they said was true, you learn that leprosy is not all that contagious today. It's not hard to treat, that if you have it, you can get antibiotics that will take care of it. And so, but even though we live in a modern scientific and medical age, the word leper still gives us the creeps, doesn't it? Would you want to shake hands with a leper? Would you want to hug a leper? Would you want to kiss a leper? we just kind of get creeped out by it, don't we? And we would just as soon not have to deal with somebody like that. And Jesus did. He stopped and he saw these lepers and he began to talk to them and he acknowledged them. And I think that was probably the very first thing that they were thankful for. They were grateful. Wow, he stopped. He saw us. He looked at us. Have you ever wondered, does God see me? I mean, really, does God really see me? There's, what, 8 billion people on our planet? Does he see me? Does he hear me? Does he listen to me when I call? Yes, he does. In fact, you can be like one of these lepers and say, hey, he stopped. He saw me. And I'm grateful for that. Jump in. Go ahead.
Just made me think of homelessness. I read an article recently about a guy, I don't know if he was a minister or what, but he decided to go and live as a homeless person, he and a friend. And he said the hardest thing was the lack of
Eye contact.
yeah, of eye contact and people even talking to you. And because, we just don't look them in the eye, we just ignore, walk by, pretend they're not there, and don't interact. The lack of human interaction was the hardest thing to go days without them talking.
There's so much isolation and well, God does see us, and Jesus saw me. And so I'm grateful, even though I was a leper, spiritually speaking. I was sinful. I am a sinner. And yet, how can a holy God come close to me? But Jesus did. So the second thing that I'm grateful for, and that these lepers were grateful for, the next slide, Jessie. He said to me, now this is a weird part, and I don't mean weird, but he sent these lepers, and sometimes you scratch your heads when you read the stories of Jesus' healings. Sometimes he heals on the spot, just touches or even speaks healing, and the person being healed really has very little to do with it. Other times, and I think about half the time, I'd have to go through and count them up, but it seems like about half the time, he has them do something. Or there's some expression of faith involved. And quite often, at the end of the story, he'll say, your faith has healed you. And that's what he said to this leper as well. So where was the faith? What was the faith involved in this? I think it's right here. He sent them and said, go show yourselves to the priests. Now, it says that 9 of these guys are Jews. Well, it didn't say there were 9, but it said at least one of them was a Samaritan. So we assume that the other 9 were Jews. And they probably, more than the Samaritan, knew the Old Testament law, the Levitical law surrounding leprosy. Now, especially if you're a leper, you're going to go do your research, right? You're going to look it up and say, what does the law say about this? And it says in Leviticus 13 and 14, it gives some very specific regulations as to how they determine that somebody has leprosy, what that person has to do if they are a leper, and what could happen if they are healed from leprosy. And so in chapter 13, it says that the priest has to examine you and determine that you have leprosy. And pretty much if you have any kind of a skin disorder, a sore that won't go away, a rash that just keeps on, or it could be just an allergy, it didn't matter. If that was some undetermined skin problem, oh, you've got leprosy. And so you would just automatically be kicked out of society and made an outcast. You had to, in Leviticus 13, it said, if the priest decides that you have leprosy, then you have to leave the camp or leave the city, go out, and you're not allowed to take care of your hair or your beard if you're a man. And you had to just kind of keep everything really shaggy looking. You had to look as bad as possible, and you had to walk around shouting, unclean. Unclean! Unclean! Why would you have to do that? So nobody would come up to you. They would know that you're a leper. And know that you might be contagious. Even though they didn't know what types were contagious or what weren't. In fact, they didn't even know what was leprosy and what wasn't. But they just to be safe, if you had any kind of a problem, you had to be kicked out of the city. And you had to walk around saying, unclean, unclean. So these 10 men that were lepers, and Jesus, the first thing he says to them is, go show yourself to the priest. I could imagine them thinking to themselves, I'm not going to do that again. That's what got me in my position where I am now. I already saw some priest told me that I'm a leper, and so I'm unclean. So that was the first thing that would be going through my head. But the second thing is, if you read Leviticus 14, there's a ceremony, and there's a whole process that you go through if you get over leprosy. And back then there was no cure for leprosy, so really what would happen is if it turns out that you didn't have leprosy. It was just a rash or just a sore that went away, and you notice, I don't have all the symptoms, I'm not doing too bad. So you would go back to the priest, and the priest would meet you outside the camp because you couldn't go in, right? So you'd have to get word to the priest in the city, and he'd come out and he would look at you, he would check your skin and any symptoms, and if he decided you were healed, then you had to go through this big long ceremony, and I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but the ceremony involved birds and blood, cedar wood, scarlet yarn, and hyssop. Hyssop was a bushy, brushy plant that had an aromatic smell, but it was also rough, and they used it to wash with. So it was a ceremonial cleansing. And so if you said you were clean, you got the birds and the blood and the scarlet yarn and the hyssop, and you had to wash all your clothes, and you would shave your hair, and you would take a bath. And he would say, okay, you are now clean. You can go back into the city. But you still can't go into your house for 7 days. So it was really weird. You had to be, you could go into the city, you could be around people, but you couldn't go into your house for 7 days. And then on the 8th day, you'd go back to the priest again, and if you are still free of symptoms, then he would go through one more ceremony. You would present 2 lambs to the priest to be sacrificed. And it says that one lamb was a sin offering and one lamb was for cleansing. And the lamb that was for cleansing, they would take some of the blood, and the priest would put some blood on your right earlobe, on your right thumb, and on your right big toe. I don't know what that was about. That was like totally weird. And it just was a symbol of the cleansing and the healing. That meant that you were finally ceremonially clean. And you could finally go into your house. You could finally sleep in your bed. You could finally go to the temple and worship with everybody else. Because up to that point, you were outside. You were an outcast. You were considered even sinful. If you had leprosy, that was probably God's judgment on you because you were such a bad person. That's usually what people thought. And if you got healed, that means, okay, you're okay again. God forgave you. And so I wonder when Jesus told these 10 men, go see the priests. And they would look at themselves and say, you mean now? I can only imagine that they hesitated. Well, probably 9 of them hesitated. The one that was a Samaritan and probably didn't know a lot of the religion, he didn't have all this religious training, he didn't know the Levitical law, he probably didn't hesitate. He probably stepped out and said, let's go, guys, come on. He said, go see the priest. And it says, as they went, as they were on their way, they were healed. They were cleansed. They had to take a step of faith, didn't they? Jesus often does that, doesn't he? When he sends us, and I don't mean he's sending you on a mission, I mean at this point he's sending you on a faith journey. He sees you first, he tells you what to do, and then you have to decide, will I step out on faith? Will I do what he says? And will I go to the priest even though I'm not healed yet? Isn't that interesting? Sometimes, religion gets in the way of really being saved, doesn't it? How can religion get in your way to really get saved?
If it's forced on you.
Okay, if it's forced on you, if you grew up being forced to go to church, is that what you're talking about? I was.
There's people that were raised in the church
Yeah.
and walked right away because it was forced on them. They said, when I turned 18, I don't have to do this.
Yeah, could be. I see it sometimes like we think, and it's really nowhere in the Bible, but we get the idea that before we can really get close to God, we've got to get ourselves cleaned up. I've got to get rid of my leprosy before I come to Jesus. I can't come to church, acting like I do. They'll think I'm a hypocrite. Well, I keep telling people, come on in. We're all hypocrites. This is a good place to be. Because we are all sinners and we know it. We need the healing and we need the blood of Jesus. And I find this fascinating that Jesus sent these lepers to the priest to get this blood from the lamb. And on the way, they're healed before they get to the lamb. And Jesus is telling us the same thing. He really is sending them to himself, to the blood, to the lamb. And he heals them. And we have to be that way too. We have to be grateful that salvation comes by faith. We don't have to get ourselves healed first. just have to step out on faith and move in that direction and come to Jesus. You know, his salvation is there. It's provided. He became the lamb. He provided the blood. But it's not automatic. We have to do something, don't we? We have to step out. We have to take it by faith. And at least move in that direction. So I'm grateful for that. I'm thankful that he sent me to himself. And then the last thing, he saved me. Those 10 lepers, he healed them. And there was one who came back. One of them turned around on the spot. The same guy who probably didn't hesitate. He stepped out on faith, started walking along, and suddenly his hands were clean, and he could feel that it was clean, and he knew that he didn't have leprosy anymore, and he's looking at the other guys and saying, hey, you don't have leprosy either. I don't have leprosy either. Hey, look at my chest. Do I still have any spots right here? You know, and they all suddenly realized they were healed. And one of them says, well, let's go back and thank Jesus. He healed us. And the other 9, I don't know, I'm just kind of making things up, but the other 9 are thinking, no, we have to go to the priests. That's the ceremony. Let's go get the ceremony taken care of, because you know this is a big long ordeal. It's going to get. We got to go find some birds and some scarlet thread and the right cedar wood, and I've got to go find some lambs now, and so they're working on their religion again. And the Samaritan says, no, I know Jesus healed me, and I'm going to go back and thank him for it. Now, I don't know. Again, I'm trying to read between the lines, and somebody already hit on it today, that maybe these guys knew who Jesus was. Maybe they knew, and this is kind of late in his ministry, so we're approaching Jerusalem. This is his last trip to Jerusalem. And so word has already gotten around that Jesus heals people, and maybe it's even gotten around that he especially heals Jewish people. That does come up a couple times, doesn't it? A Samaritan will come up and ask for healing, and Jesus said, well, I'm really sent to the lost sheep of Israel, and so, but I'll go ahead and heal you too. So I just wonder if it was going through their minds that these 9 Jews and 1 Samaritan were thinking, Jesus is going to heal me. He probably won't heal you. But I know he's going to heal me because I'm a God-fearing Jew. I mean, I know this stuff. I've got the religion down. I know the Levitical law, and I know what we got to do. And when he heals us, that's what we're going to do. And the Samaritan is just, can I hang out with you guys just in case? Maybe he won't notice that I'm not a Jew. Maybe he'll go ahead and heal me. Let's see. And they say, okay, yeah, you can hang out with us, but he probably won't heal you because Jesus knows everything. He knows you're not really a Jew. So these Jewish guys, when Jesus heals them, maybe they're really not surprised. Maybe they even felt like they deserved it. Right? Now, is it hard to be thankful when you deserve what you get?
Yeah, I made the effort to be here,
Yeah. I mean, I worked for this. I earned this. I mean, how many of you guys, every time you get a paycheck from your employer, do you write them a thank you note? Dear employer, thank you for paying me. Oh, yay, this is wonderful. I didn't know you were going to do this. Yes, we did, Really, what we usually do is look at our paycheck and say, is that all? Why'd you take out this or you took out that? And I thought I worked another half an hour here and I didn't get paid for it. And
Who's FICA?
who's FICA anyway? Yeah, who's that guy? He's getting all my money. No, we're not grateful for something that we are entitled to. right? That sense of entitlement keeps us.
Is it entitlement though if you work for it?
Yeah, if you feel like you worked for it. But there's a feeling of entitlement that we often have, not even just for working things.
Just by being American.
I'm an American.
Yeah.
I'm
Being
American.
on this soil.
Of course I'm a Christian.
They're cowboys.
I'm a good cowboy. I'm a redneck. Jesus saves people. That's what he does, right? So, yeah. Of course he's going to save me. I'm not that bad of a person, and I'm a good Christian. I'm a good American. Of course he saved me. Why should I be grateful for that? Or sometimes we get I'm just helping us think, okay? Hopefully we don't think this way, but sometimes we think, I'm doing him a favor. I mean, I'm accepting him to be my Lord and my Savior, and I'm going to serve him. Lucky him. Now he's got me, you know. I'm going to work in the church, and I'm going to be a good volunteer, and I'm going to do all these great things, and I might make a mission trip someday. And boy, isn't he lucky to have me? Or sometimes we take this great salvation for granted and say, okay, someday I'll accept him. I know he'll be there waiting for me when I decide to do him this favor. But first I want to have my fun, I want to get my life, I want to do what I want to do first, and maybe someday I'll accept Jesus as my Savior. It don't work that way, does it? There's especially no gratitude involved. I think this Samaritan went back to thank Jesus because he was so surprised. He was overcome. He saved me! I can't believe it! Who was I? Samaritan, a foreigner. I didn't deserve this. I didn't know he would do it. I couldn't have done it myself. He saved me. Wow. That's where gratitude comes from. Not, I think I can do this anytime I want, or I'm doing him a favor, or maybe I deserve this. It's just saying, well, I can't believe he saved me. It doesn't mean you have to be this horrible, long-lost sinner. And you have lived a long life being apart from God and done some things that you're not too proud of. Maybe you're like me. I grew up in a church. My dad's a preacher. I've never done anything really, really bad.
But are you a Jew?
Are
you a Jew?
I would be like the Jews.
But are you a Jew?
Not physically.
That makes you a Samaritan.
That's right, I am a Gentile. Definitely a Samaritan. But spiritually, I was a leper. I was a Samaritan. I was far from God. And he saved me. Unbelievable. I can't believe it. I'm so grateful. I think that's the attitude of Thanksgiving that we need to have this week as we go. Look at the last slide, Jessie, just as a conclusion. What am I thankful for? Well, usually we do the list, right? The whole cornucopia of, is that how you say that? Cornucopia? Of all the good things. Family, friends, health, shelter, wealth, food, all the good stuff. And we should be grateful because we are privileged. We live in a great country. We have all these blessings. And God has really overdone it to us. But if I had none of that stuff, I would still be full. And I would be thankful. He saw me in my sin. He sent me on a faith journey, a step of faith. And then he saved me. Me. Can't believe it. He even saved me.
He's there for just a few, he's there for
Everybody. Well, let's stand together and pray. The second group is coming in. Lord, we are so grateful. Jesus, thank you for stopping and seeing each one of us. Thank you for healing us and sending us on this faith journey. And maybe some of us are still on that faith journey, and some of us are still waiting to be healed of who we were. And we all need that. Thank you for saving us. Thank you for your great salvation that reaches each one of us. And we can each be surprised by that. And each of us are grateful. Help us to go home today and this week with a spirit and attitude of thankfulness, gratitude for all your blessings. We are very privileged. We know that you have poured out an abundance upon us. But most of all, we are thankful for your grace, for your forgiveness, for your Holy Spirit that dwells in each of us. So send us out in that power through your Holy Spirit, we pray.